Well, we use different birds of prey or falconry on our site to naturally deter other species from nesting. So you can imagine, as it occurs in the wild, the natural predator-prey relationship. We lean on that here, so that way when we fly these birds, the smaller ones, if you will, they're nervous when the larger ones are in the area, so they tend to take off and they don't necessarily want to nest on our site.
So this bird I brought today, this is Grue. He's 8 years old. He's a male redtail, as you can see with his tail here. Very distinctive red with a bar. He's the most common bird in Ontario. We will see hydro lines, fence posts, all up and down the highway. He weighs about 2.5 pounds, and he's got about a 3.5 to 4 foot wingspan on him. We tend to bring two types of birds just to show that there's a larger presence of predators in the area, or birds of prey. This encourages the birds to move along. Usually we have a redtail or a Harris hawk with us. The redtail is actually native to Canada. The Harris hawk is southern states, Central America. However, they fly differently, they have different coloring, the Harris hawk being more of a rusty brown color. This provides two threats, not just one, so they see there's two birds in the area, it's doubly unsafe. They like to fly different paths, they have their favorite perches, and the way they fly is different. Our redtails like to go up in the air and soar around and hang out there for a little bit, then come back down to us. Whereas our Harris hawks kind of go more from perch to perch to perch. However, depending on bird activity in the area, if we need to, so to speak, pull out our big guns, we bring in some of our owls, or even we have a large ferruginous hawk we bring on site to take care of some of the more stubborn birds who like to hang out a little longer.
Just like at home, right, when the spring weather rolls around and the weather starts to change, gets a little bit warmer, we hear those birds chirping, and of course they're trying to nest. So early on in the springtime, it's a heavy season for us, if you will. But on any given day, on average throughout the course of that season, we have typically two teams on site in different locations.
We have one team in the morning and one team at night. So the morning team will have Grue and our Harris hawk Ezra. The night team has our redtail Rex and our Harris hawk Jane. We like to be walking around before the sun's up. That way when the birds wake up, they realize the threat's already there, and it comes in kind of while they're asleep. They're a little more nervous this way, and they'll immediately start the day by moving along. We continue the day by flying our birds or walking our birds around the site to just prove we still have a claim on the territory. We run dogs as well to scare off the ground birds. Afternoon, we come back in with our night shift birds, do the same thing, fly them around, walk them around, establish that this is our territory, and we hang around just until after sunset. So when the birds are looking for somewhere safe to hunker down at night and sleep, they realize the threat is still in the area and they'll move along.
These birds are highly trained by a professional falconry team to not target or hunt these species on site. We do operate under a special permit through the Canadian Wildlife Services that allows for this natural type of activity to occur. But our falconry team does a pretty excellent job of keeping their bellies full and keeping them fed, the risk reward as they go throughout the day. So when these birds fly throughout the course of the day in different areas, they're not necessarily targeting or hunting. They're more so out for a joyride, if you will.
So kind of as like Tyler mentioned before, there's a risk reward. So these birds come back for food. We're the easiest source of food, so when we release them, if they come back to us, they get food right off the glove. They just have to land on the glove, they get a piece of food. Whereas doing it another way, if they see another piece of wildlife, they would have to chase it down. There's no guarantee they get it. So these birds like coming to us because we are the easiest source of food, and that's how it's trained. So same way you train a dog for treats, train the bird for treats, so to speak. So when these birds see another species on site, if they take too much of an interest in it, we can tell by their body language, their posture, the way they behave. However, we are still the easiest source of food. So when we see this behavior happen, we immediately call them back to the glove. They get a piece of food, and we'll just simply walk to another area and let them go. Take them away from the other species so that no incidents occur. But I'd say to take a fresh, like a new bird, and train it all the way to flying on site can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months.
For a site like this, not that uncommon. We've got a lot of different areas that are great nesting locations for birds. We've got lots of cranes behind us, taller structures once the bridge deck starts to go up. There's a lot of different areas that birds will typically want to nest, and again, given that we're right on the river, it's waterfront property for them. First being all the different construction equipment and machinery that are constantly moving day to day. It's very important that we keep all wildlife away from site to prevent any accidental harm or injury to all wildlife, not just the protected species or the species at risk, but all wildlife in general. But secondly, when we talk about species at risk in particular, they pose some serious timely and costly delays when you have them on site. So, for example, we had a species at risk bird nest, let's say it's a bank swallow, on our site. We're required by law to place an exclusion zone around that nest. What that means is we're not allowed to have anyone or any work occur inside that area. So you can imagine how large of an area that is, number one, but number two, given the different species we have here in southwestern Ontario, some of them, they don't leave for several weeks up to several months, so it really does pose some timely and costly delays to our construction timeline.
I became a falconer, I started working with birds of prey 13 years ago. I volunteered at a falconry center. It turned out to be something I really enjoyed and liked to follow through with. So I went through and I obtained everything I needed to start an apprenticeship program. I found a sponsor to teach me, completed my apprenticeship program, got my license, and about 7 years ago I started this company, Kingsport. The most satisfying part I find of this job is actually being a part of it, to say. I get to walk around every day and watch the progress of the site as it turns into its finished product. For future generations to come, I'll be able to point to these two very distinctive towers and be able to say, my company was here, my employees were here, we were a part of it,